I'm like so thankful that you're here with us today, being on the show, and I am just really excited. And I remember talking to you the first time, and I was like, in my head, I watch so many movies. I'm a movie buff, and I was like, she reminds me of Reese Witherspoon. Here she is. Gabby! Hi, Kim!
Hi, you! It's been a while.
It's
good
been a
to
while.
see you.
It's so good to see you.
You too. It's been since Vegas.
I know, G&E 2023 and now 2024.
I know, right? This is definitely not Vegas. Welcome to Atlanta.
I'm so excited to be on your turf, see your area.
So we're right here where I grew up. I moved here when I was 10 from Boston. Funny story, I tell a lot of people and they laugh. I actually had a Boston accent growing up because that's where I learned to talk. So my early childhood in Plymouth, Massachusetts, where the Pilgrims landed.
Ah, yes.
And so developed quite the Boston accent. Moved down here. Yeah, it was pack the cat. So pack the cat. You don't say your R's. And so when I moved here to Atlanta in 4th grade, they put me in a speech class. And my mom was like, well, she doesn't have a speech impediment. She just has an accent. She's going to get over it. Don't pull her out of class. So I really didn't have a Southern accent at all. Most of the people I grew up with around here in this East Cobb area aren't from here. Mm-hmm. They're all transplants. Parents worked for like IBM, Coca-Cola, UPS. Like we're all from different parts of the country.
Yeah.
So we didn't really have accents growing up. And then I went to college at the University of Georgia in Athens and lived with my sorority sisters for 4 years in the sorority house, the Trident House, and developed my Southern accent around a lot of my South Georgia sorority sisters that would say like deity.
So y'all get the draw.
Yep. So I was in Athens for 10 years. I've been with my high school boyfriend that I followed to the University of Georgia to college. We've been together over 30 years. So he's my only love. And we've been married almost 24 years.
Wow.
And we both grew up here. So we both went to the same high school a year apart. And a lot of our friends that we went to high school or college with have moved back to this area and they raised their families here as well. So it's kind of cool to be around, a lot of familiarity, but it has had tremendous growth, of course, since, Atlanta is just always growing. I remember when Atlanta turned about 1 million in population, and now our metro area is over 6 million, approaching 7 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So huge growth.
Huge growth.
Absolutely. So we're just going down a little road, Lower Roswell Road. In Atlanta, I always laugh that you have to know all your Roswell roads and Peachtree roads because everything is named the same things, but they're all different roads. So in your GPS, you have to be careful what you put. Yep, you got to make sure you know you're going to the right city or town because they have the same roads.
It's like, which peach?
Yep. Yeah, I had to tell her today, I was like, we're going to Johnson Ferry Road. And she make sure you put Marietta as Johnson Ferry. Otherwise, you're headed to Atlanta, which is Northside Hospital. And that would have been a 20-minute difference. So here, knowing your directions and having a really good local guide helps. And then explaining all of our different road names. Atlanta was not built like a grid city. So our roads tend to be a little bit more random the way they are. We're not really built in a grid that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of the sprawl where, as these communities grew, we just streets as they came along. A lot of the roads that have ferry in them, like Ferry, are because they go over rivers or creeks. Ooh. And they didn't have bridges to them. So they had to have ferries that took you across the bridge to get to that other side of the community with no bridges. And the ferry names around here, like Johnson Ferry Road, were named after the families that ran the ferries. So the big road here is called Johnson Ferry Road, and it goes over the Chattahoochee River, which flows through metro Atlanta. And then all the, Herd's Ferry, all the ferry names, I believe, are named after families or companies that ran the ferry systems across the little rivers to get you over the river.
a little Atlanta history right there.
Yep.
And I love when you're able to leave the mark, and then also just knowing where and how to get places, like you said, the guide.
Yeah, geography and landmarks, things like our mountain. We have Kennesaw Mountain in Cobb County. It's a big mountain. It's also a national park. It's a battlefield from the Civil War. But there's not many roads that go to and from the mountains. So traffic tends to be a little bit heavier in West Cobb because they have to get around the mountain. So I have to explain that to buyers. Yes, it may look like this area is closer on the map, but then you have to deal with, some traffic issues because of the mountain. So just lakes, rivers, all those types of things in an area really do influence commute times and traffic and things like that.
Well, we're about to visit this property, and coming in as somebody who's experiencing your tour, how would you prepare your buyers?
Absolutely. So I do always set up a buyer consultation. So I ask some specific questions, and that's really to help me understand what their needs are, where they're coming from, and also what experiences they've had as a buyer before. So if they've had a bad experience, I want to know that so we don't do the same things. I really also want to know, if I'm working with a couple, what each part of the partner wants, because they can all be different with their needs, and we have to make some kind of compromise. I also try to get them to about 80% of what they want. You usually never find 100% of what you want, but 80% I teach them is about the goal. So a lot of it's just preparation, because once you really know what they want, then you can really tailor your tours to fit that. Locations are key too, because if they don't really know and they're a relocation buyer, you really have to show them multiple areas. And then I just say, you'll know when it feels like home. As we're driving around, I think you'll be able to eliminate areas if it's just not home to you.
Definitely driving, just driving and seeing what the city and the town looks like, and leading up to the house, what will your family drive up to your house be like?
What is it like to go to the grocery store at night? I teach my buyers that. I'm like, if you really want to know what an area feels like and you're going to be living there and spending time in that community, go to the grocery store at night. See if you're comfortable parking and going into a store at night, and that becomes where you're going to spend a lot of your time. So that's important.
Well, I'm so excited to check out this house. The drive up, gorgeous.
Yeah,
the trees right now. Oh,
this is a new construction one listed by my friend Lisa Collins in the Buckhead office for Atlanta Fine Home Sotheby's International Realty. So I'm excited to see it.
All right, let's go check it out.
All right. And we're actually going to go down the street I grew up on. I know. So you get to see where Kim Eilers grew up, which is kind of cool. So let's go see it.
I'm excited to see your roots. So you've described East Cobb as the backdrop of your everyday life. How has growing up, now living in the same community, influenced your approach as a realtor?
Oh, wow. I mean, I tell my clients that, they're in great hands because they know someone who knows someone in every neighborhood. So if we're looking for something, and right now we're still in a multiple offer situation for great houses, knowing the agents and also knowing someone in every neighborhood helps, because if I'm looking for a property and the buyer really wants to be in that area, I have to really do a lot to try to find a home that may not be listed yet. So I think having the advantage of knowing a lot of people and knowing agents, but also just people that live in the neighborhoods, are helpful. When my clients are coming and they know nobody, literally nobody, because they're relocating, it's great for me, because I literally know someone in every neighborhood, or I'm 1 degree of separation away. I will connect you, and you can ask them all about the schools and play groups.
Yes.
The community next door I sell in often is called Roswell, Georgia. And one of my sweetest friends I've known for years became friends with one of my clients and introduced her to people at their school, and just really helped her become a part of the community. And I love that. And now the three of us go to lunch often, and we're just all buddies now. So, and it all sprung from me just knowing people in schools where they didn't know anybody, and I was able to connect them. So I think being a connector in your own community is really the key.
And I agree with that. Moving states is a big chew.
Yeah, absolutely. And they love that, because my approach is, my clients are like family for life. And when they get to know me, they realize that I'm very nurturing, and I want my clients to be around for as long as possible, and not just think of me as a real estate agent, but as their friend. So I really do try to give them that warm and welcoming invitation to the community, and whatever I can help them with, even after the sale, it goes way beyond the sale. So I'm not a transaction agent that just cares about transaction after transaction. I'm definitely more of a relationship agent. Family. I actually showed that house when it was for sale a few months ago. It has a pool in the backyard. I showed my clients, actually really liked it. I was like, would it be weird to like have a pool and you knew your like agent swam in there when she was a little girl? They laughed. So it's funny when you're like showing houses where you remember the people who grew up. But you can tell which ones have been completely torn down and renovated, and then which are sort of the originals. And my best friend Heather grew up right there in that cul-de-sac. We used to swap clothes with this middle house right here. So we'd wake up in the morning, and if we wanted to like have a cute outfit for school, we'd like meet in their driveway and swap clothes and then get ready and go on the bus.
And I am actually surprised at how hilly like Marietta is.
Yes.
Like, this is hilly.
Well, I tell my clients too, because let's say they're from Michigan or something, they're used to snow and ice. I'm like, you have to understand why we get made fun of here in the South for any amount of ice or snow, because look at it. Would you want to drive in any of this when they don't prepare any of the roads?
No, thank you.
So, yeah, we shut down if we do get ice and snow for the most part, especially in these suburban areas, because they're not icing our or de-icing our driveways or salting our side roads. They'll do the main roads, but we just don't have the infrastructure here for them to take care of a big storm. So
yeah. And
it's
then
kind of nice to get a little break.
Snow, do you have any quirky little hacks on when you're like navigating or helping someone begin to navigate around Marietta?
GPS.
We love maps.
Get to know your GPS really well. This is the one I was going to show you that's brand new construction. Right here on the street I grew up in. So they tore something down to build something new. We're just out of land here. So that's kind of what they're having to do in these great neighborhoods, or do full renovations. This one's listed by Dory Homes, which is a great local builder. And my colleague Kim Eilers and Courtney Perry are listing it. Gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's
But
fun.
you'll see there's a variety.
Yeah.
And this is happening in a lot of in-town areas of Atlanta. My friend had bought a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow when she got out of law school and used the exact same foundation to now build a 7,000 square foot house in the same lot.
Wow.
And the structure is still there. She just added on. So she went from a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow to like 6,000 or 7,000 square foot house because the neighborhood's so desirable. And that's just kind of what you have to do if you want to stay in the location that you desire. Yay! Okay, so thank you for that little detour. Had to make sure my clients are in good hands. I want to show you all like the 5 4 doors. Well, let's look at another 5 style. A little bit different, but still a 5 4 door as far as the layout of the house inside. This one has the room over the garage, which we call a bonus room. And often there's back stairs from the kitchen up to the bonus room. So really common design style here in the 80s, early 90s here in East Cobb. Even into the 70s, they started doing these 5 4 doors. So once you go in one, you sort of know the floor plan once you go in them. The older ones have like 8-foot ceilings, but these are really nice because these had 9-foot ceilings, which was more rare back in the day. So my buyers love this neighborhood because it was 3-sided brick. And it had the higher ceilings throughout all 3 floors, which was a little unique for the time. So it's part of educating my clients in this specific area of East Cobb because so much new construction was done in the 80s. This is when this area boomed. Yeah. And it's when I grew up here too. So we were all kind of a melting pot here in this area.
You are balancing, like we spoke about earlier, you're balancing your family and your career. And how does your family play a role in like how you interact with your career on a day-to-day?
So my kids for the last 7 years have grown up with mommy being a real estate agent, and they've had to adjust and pivot. My husband works from home, so that makes life a lot easier because he can definitely, when he needs to, help out with kid stuff. So there's that balance there, which helps me a lot. And they're also just super understanding that the type of work that I do, it can be 24/7, and it can be on vacation, and it can be wherever we're at. I attend to my clients. My kids know that, and they have been immersed in it. And my son would love to be in real estate because he's like, I already know. He hears me. He hears me negotiate. He hears how I interact with clients. He hears like how I deal with difficult situations and how I come up with conflict resolution. So it's kind of like having that as a part of the balance, because I don't know how many kids are exposed to what their parents do. And also we're entrepreneurs. So we're running our own businesses as real estate agents.
Definitely.
We're under a brokerage, but we're all still running our own independent businesses. And so they get to see mom kind of do her thing and run a business and do it the way I want to. And I think that inspires them a lot, and definitely inspires my daughter. They do both love homes. They know a lot about the area they live in. But yeah, the balance, it really, you can't do it all. You can never be super person. Like, it just, to me, it's, you have to pick and choose. And to me, I have always used this analogy, and I love it. I think I learned this in college, but it's the glass ball analogy. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Well, we all juggle balls in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And imagine you're juggling, and most of the balls that you juggle are rubber.
Mm.
You drop them, they're going to bounce.
Right.
A lot of the balls that we juggle are all rubber, right? But then you have a few glass ones that are precious. And if you juggle and you break that glass ball, it's done. So in your life, you have to decide when you balance things of what are your glass balls and what are your rubber balls. So it puts things in a perspective when you're trying to solve something and you're like, do I need to prioritize this? Is this really right now a glass ball that I can't let break?
Oh, I love
because
that.
you cannot literally be 100% perfect and juggle it all at the same time. You're going to drop balls.
And it is a juggle. Like,
absolutely. Yeah. Or you delegate.
Life.
Yeah. If I go on vacation, I always have a backup agent from my office that will show homes and be, me if they need to be. I still take care of my clients. I bring my laptop. I can still do negotiations and everything from wherever I'm at. I just may not be able to be physically there to show a home or meet a contractor, things like that. But I always have a support structure, a team around me of other agents that we all help each other out in times like that. So I love that collegiality and it helps me balance it. And I'm at a brokerage and an office where I have so much support and team work around me that it does help do some of the heavier lifting as far as balancing being working mom, and we're all kind of similar situations, so it's nice. And I learned so much from my fellow agents. So,
and when you spoke about negotiating, when you do negotiating deals, and with your leadership background, have you had a moment where you really felt like you took a lesson away, want to share a lesson from your negotiation history?
Negotiation. Okay, so one of my favorite books is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. A lot of us in real estate love his work. It's really about tactical empathy and how you negotiate really by understanding the other side. So if you don't ask the right questions, or you're really not using the approach of, hey, let's really understand if we can and ask great questions so we can then negotiate on behalf of our client, it's a little bit of a different approach. So I love Chris Voss's work, really well known in our industry, and he did a master class. He's a great guy. Side story, I actually got to take Chris Voss out to lunch years ago.
What?
Yeah, he was one of our speakers for Atlanta Fine Homes, and he uses this phrase where, is it crazy if I ask? He uses things like that to kind of introduce when you negotiate. And so I ran up to him after the event and I said, is it crazy to ask if you have lunch plans? And
I bet he loved it.
He's like, absolutely. He's like, actually, I'm just headed to the airport, but I have some time. So 3 agents in my office, we took him to lunch. And it was super cool because now he's like this super famous, masterclass instructor and has this big following. He's known as the FBI negotiator.
Oh,
he was a former FBI
I think I've seen that masterclass
negotiator.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the guy I took to lunch a few years ago. So it's kind of fun. So I love negotiation stuff. I was exposed to Chris Voss's work when I first became an agent. And so negotiation's been always something I've been really interested in. And we have to use it all the time. But you negotiate everything in life. I think everything's a negotiation. Even with your kids. And again, it's all about asking the right questions. And when you're serving clients, it's really about getting to their why and what makes them tick and what their buttons are. And if you don't know that, and you don't ask the right questions, how will you know?
Right.
So it's not about me. And I always say that to my clients. I'm like, if it's not about me today, this is about your needs, and let's pivot to whatever meets your needs the best. So many times, like once I learn more about a client, and I find out I've had this whole tour like perfectly done right for the day, but they're like, just this area is not calling to me, Kim. I'm like, let's go to another one. And you just do what they need to make it work. But without asking the right questions, I wouldn't know.
Right.
Because if it was on my agenda or worked best for me that day, I would have just stuck to my little plan and been all nervous about having to pivot, right?
Mhm.
Because it's a lot of work to put tours together and make all the appointments and route where you're going to go. It takes some skill. I think it all plays together and is a big part of real estate.
And empathy, like you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Whenever you're walking a first-time buyer through the process, what kind of empathy do you put first and forefront in the conversation?
So you have to know their pleasure and pain points, and money may be a big one, but it also may be they have a baby on the way. They have parents who are really concerned about their well-being, and that's a big point. You don't know until you ask really what is causing them to either make a decision or not make a decision. And when it's a first-time home buyer, there's just a lot of anxiety about the process because it's a new process for them, and they're having to worry about a lot of things they've never done before. And it does bring about a lot of stress, anxiety. But that's my job. I always say I'm here to be your guide and advise you along this process, hold your hand the whole way, get you through it, and take off some of that stress that they might feel during that process. And that's what I love, because I think my education background and my psychology and leadership background lend to that sort of style as a realtor. I'm definitely more the nurturing kind of mom type. I love to tell stories and always give examples, and education to me is I love educating first-time home buyers. It's actually one of my favorite parts about the job.
Guiding them, providing them with the resources. I mean, even whenever I went into the office, you were like, here's a resource, here's a resource.
It's almost like teacher Kim, you know what I mean? I'm a little bit
I love it though. No
5 4 to door. Are you recognizing them now?
I am. And when you said it, I was like, I don't know what that means. And now that I see it, I'm like, I get it.
I totally get it. We have a variety of styles in here. So, a lot of traditionals, with the brick and the 5 4 doors with bonus rooms. And then you have some I call them California contemporaries, or sort of soft contemporaries, and people have renovated them. I love my neighborhood. It feels like a park to me. We have these really mature, 40 plus year old trees, mature landscaping, but the best amenities. We have great swim and tennis. We have walking trails. We have a fountain in our lake. We have about 700 homes in here.
Wow.
Yeah.
And even as we're driving, whenever you said the Hollywood is coming to Atlanta, I'm like, I can see it. This is gorgeous.
Oh, and when you watch anything, and I can just tell because of the architecture of our homes and our trees, our pine straw, and remember the red clay dirt?
Yes.
I can find those little, and I'm like, yep, that's Georgia. But it's funny because it'll take place like the show Ozark.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be Atlanta, but it was filmed in Metro Atlanta. But you can tell just based on the way the trees look and the types of houses and when they were built. It's a very regional thing.
Next time I watch a movie, I'm going to be like,
I know, is it Atlanta? And then you watch at the end and you're like, there's the Georgia, symbol that they put at the end.
Now I see a lot of people walking.
Sidewalks.
How big is the dog community?
Oh, huge. Yeah, we all love our fur babies. My fur baby doesn't leave the house. He's a cat.
Ooh.
But we have a lot of dog people. And the yards, you were asking before on features that buyers are really looking for. Well, a lot of them that don't have kids, their fur babies are their babies, and they want a fenced yard to take care of their babies. So if it's not for the kids, if they're buying their first home here, they really want that backyard for their dog. Yeah, super important. And now we're seeing in luxury homes where they're building the whole pet stations. The laundry room area may even have a special dog washing area.
I think those are cute.
Yeah, they're really cute. I love seeing those. It always make me smile. You have to, as a good agent, find out really what do they want to see in an area that helps them live their best life. And sometimes it's the commute, because they don't really want a long commute. They want to get back and forth from their office quickly so they can then do what they enjoy. They don't want to spend a lot of, and then others, I'm like, nope, they want the house, they want the schools, and they're willing to have a much longer commute. So everyone's lifestyle is different, and you just have to ask questions, find out really what they want. I don't try to guess too much on what my client wants to see. I let them drive a lot of the properties that they want to see. But they advise, I'll say, hey, they just sent me a text of a property, and they'll say, what's wrong with it? Or why would we not want to see it? And I've known them well enough that I'll say, well, it doesn't have the primary and the main, or it does have the primary and the main, or the basement isn't what you're looking for, or, this one backs up to power lines and you said you didn't want to be near power lines. So really a lot of fact finding and just helping them really hone in on the areas and types of housing that they want.
And the lifestyle.
Cannot stress it enough. And the lifestyle, exactly. Some people are from areas where they have a Trader Joe's and they can't live without their Trader Joe's. And I have to say, well, here in Cobb County, the only Trader Joe's is in East Cobb, right here. If you wanted to be 45 minutes away in West Cobb, you're going to have to come over here to go to Trader Joe's.
That's funny. Like, people are very loyal to their grocery stores.
And Whole Foods, we have one here in East Cobb. How far away do you want to be from a Sephora or a Lululemon for 13-year-olds? That's really important right now. I have one, and
Drunk Elephant taking over.
Oh boy, yeah. My kids are really outdoorsy. They a few years ago were competitive mountain bikers. We spent a lot of time on the trails around here, and we're lucky to have such great mountain biking trails, but they're also hiking trails. So my family has spent quite a bit of time enjoying all of our trails, and just the great outdoors is such an important part of living here in Atlanta and having quick access to it. We don't have to go far to find a great place to be outside. And the nice thing with all these big trees, it's usually pretty shaded.
On the trail.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
Yeah, and then you've got streams and little creeks, and
there are a lot of creeks in here.
Yeah, a lot of water because we're near the Chattahoochee River, which is a major river. So all these little creeks and tributaries feed into the Chattahoochee, which lend us to like, we had paper mills in the late 1800s that were really common here. So we have a road here called Paper Mill Road, and it's because there was a literal paper mill built on the creek that fed into the Chattahoochee right below it. So a lot of names of things, I was fascinated because I never put the connection together growing up here on why things were named the way they are. So, and a lot of it's like paper mills or creeks, or, we have a lot of words with creek in it.
And you did the digging to find out the history, the story.
Yes. Yeah. I'm fascinated by history of area. So the Civil War impacted this area.
Oh.
Quite a bit. So Sherman's troops came from the north right through Atlanta, burnt most of it down. So we don't have the older buildings like you see in the Northeast because it was all gone. So very little pre-Civil War is still around, but there are remnants of it. And you'll see remnants of farmland that had historic homes on it that they try to preserve. We have a park here called Hyde Farm, and it was one of the original like homesteads for this area of Atlanta, and they're still trying to preserve it. So the Civil War had a big impact on this area, even though it was how long ago. It still impacts a lot of the history of this area and what kind of developed because of the Civil War.
That makes me think of Reese Witherspoon again.
Oh boy.
But you said you had a story about her.
Oh yeah. So back in the 90s, I had come back from Athens to Atlanta for a party that because most of my friends, when they left UGA, moved back to Atlanta. So I went to a party, and this girl was kind of staring at me across the room. And she finally comes up to me because I could tell that she was looking at me, and I was like, what's she looking at? And she finally comes up to me and she goes, you know who you look like? And this was probably 1996-ish, 97. I said, yeah, I get this actress Reese Witherspoon a lot. She goes, yeah, I date her brother. I was like, no way. She goes, yeah, I used to date her brother in Nashville. She was like, I'm from Nashville, and South's kind of a small world. Like, you go to UGA, you're going to end up meeting people that went to Vanderbilt or, different big schools around here. But she's like, your mouth moves like her, your chin moves like her. I was like, well, I'm older than her, so she must have gotten it from me. Yeah, so you just never know. But I would love to meet her. I think it's cool that she's our speaker at our global networking event that we're having in Nashville, because she's from Nashville, so it would be so cool to meet her.
And I definitely think she's leading the way of showing the unique past and almost like negotiation deals that you can make as an entrepreneur.
And as a woman too. I mean, phenomenal what she's done with her business, and being able to make movies out of, you know, books that females have written. I love that. And I love her clothing line, Draper James. I'll have to give a plug for that. She has a great clothing line.
Walking through a house and you're like matchmaking in your head.
Yeah, and I tell my strategy a lot to each side. So if I'm representing a listing and I'm in there in a listing presentation, I will tell the sellers that my strategy is that I think like the other side, and I want them to think like the other side. And again, that plays into the empathy. So if you can put yourself in the shoes of others, it's empathy, right? And so I try to get them in the mindset of, let's look at your house the way a buyer would, and let's look at photos of other homes similar to yours, similar areas, and compare it, and really look at your house as a product. It's no longer your home. You know, let's depersonalize it, but let's look at this as a product, just the way a buyer would.
Right.
And also, like, looking at the data of what the market has as far as comps. Let's look at see what else is sold, what else is available, what the competition is, because that's the way a buyer is going to look at your house. And you have to get them out of the mindset of selling their personal home and all the emotion that goes with it, and help them to kind of be more practical and more business oriented, that they're actually selling a product and not their home anymore. So with buyers, I tell them, let's think like the sellers, so we can, you know, think of an offer that the sellers are going to be attracted to, especially like we are here in a seller's market, strong seller's market with multiple offers. We need to think like what the sellers are going to want. And then it's my job to communicate and have great relationships with all these local agents like we just met. So I can get from that agent some information that might help me tailor a great offer. So does the seller need temporary occupancy? Do they need to stay in the property beyond the closing date? Is that important to them? Because if it is, I'm going to write it into the offer. If it's not important, I'm not going to give that away, because that's, you know, free housing that my buyer is paying for and the seller really may not need. Seller may need a specific closing date. That may be important. A specific closing attorney may be important to the listing agent because they've started title work. There's all kinds of things that if you communicate well and you have great relationships with the other side, it really is an advantage to your client. So I remind both sides that, hey, let's think like the other side. And I love to do a balance of buyers and sellers, so I can always stay on my toes and be able to think like the other side, and always be aware of both the listing side and the buyer side in my market. When there's trainings and things that relate to client relationships and anything that relates to the kind of the therapy side that we practice as agents, being like calming a client down. You asked about anxiety and first-time home buyers with anxiety. It takes a lot of being able to say, I hear you, I see you, I know this is hard, I just want you to know I'm here for you.
Right.
And whatever I can do, just you validate them, and you validate the situation they're in, and you just accept it, and you work with what you've got. And if you have a buyer with a ton of anxiety, you got to work with it. And I think it takes, because it's not, again, about my needs, it's about that client's needs. And that may be something that's a really big trigger for them. And I've had clients with anxiety, and I definitely have to put on like a therapist psychology hat in order to really reach them and have them feel like secure and that they trust me. So my job is to make sure that like they do feel comfortable, and every decision that we make isn't about me. It's about what they're comfortable with. So giving them the choices, giving them the confidence to make those decisions, the education, the data, whatever they need to feel confident in making those decisions. I really feel like it's got to be about them. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So,
and I think that it brings up a really good point where, you know, you're not just juggling anxieties and fears about that specific situation. Like, you're dealing with
their family, their jobs, their kids. They might have been burned before in another transaction. I want my client to feel like they have the choice, and that they picked the estimate and the contractor or the inspector or the lender because that's their choice.
And giving them the control.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is their transaction. This is their thing. This is their biggest purchase. It's not mine. My job is to advise.
I think your empathy, I think your approach to your customers' experience and making sure that they feel in control and heard is a super valuable asset. And I think that if anyone's looking in Marietta, you are a great realtor to turn to. And I have one last question for you. What is the legacy that you hope that the people who know you feel?
Nurtured, well educated in the process, that they really feel like they were able to make their own decisions based on advice and knowledge and things like that, and resources I provide. But I just want to feel like, I've made a difference in some way, and I give anyone a great experience, whether it's the guy who just served us at a restaurant. Always treat everybody with kindness, and you just never know. Like we went to got pizza at Mellow Mushroom, and the server asked what we were doing, and because we were warm, and he was just curious. And I think just leaving a legacy of service, that's important to me, is just feeling like I served my community, my family, whoever I encountered.
Got chills.
Oh!
Thank you, Kim. This is a lovely dialogue at the dashboard.
It was awesome. So much fun. Let's do it again. That one. Let's see. Oh, understanding market value is a great one too. And then for a listing, let's give them the photo shoot checklist as well. And I gave you these as well. All right, I think we're all set. Yay!